Hi everybody. So I've done one video on the racial thing with the late George Floyd and our view on the whole subject and our belief on the whole thing and you know, our background and our condolences and all of that. But this video is about COVID-19 and the relation to George Floyd with riots all over the world and what that has to do and what that reveals concerning the heart of people in general, all right? And I'm even going to speak about pastors and preachers, and this video might probably aggravate a lot of people, and that's fine. Sometimes that's necessary, and so I'm not asking forgiveness up front, so I'm warning you that it might aggravate you. All right, here we go. So when the whole COVID-19 thing started, we were in South Africa, and we're still in South Africa right now because it's not quite over yet. The lockdown's not quite over yet. My wife made a post, and because you know, church services was not allowed, but funerals was allowed. Okay, and so somehow it was more necessary for funerals than for church services. Okay, so obviously the priority there was towards that. Okay, so the whole thing was, and this is what I wanted to speak about more than anything else, is what is your priority? All right, so what is your priority? Now, of course, not everybody's priorities are the same, etc., etc. But what I wanted to get to is a lot of people and a lot of preachers, unfortunately, pulled the whole wisdom card. Okay, so, you know, stay home, be safe, this is a big deal, blah-de-de-blah-de-de-blah. And long story short, a couple of weeks later, nothing happened. There's a few people that got sick, and that's about it. But in reality, you know, if you look at the statistics, less people died of COVID-19 than the normal flu, according to the CDC, okay? And so there's a few statistics that we'll just throw in there, but yeah. So the bottom line is that there's less people that die statistically, according to the CDC, from COVID-19 than the regular flu virus. Okay, so this whole thing is a whole bunch of baloney. All right, so right there, I probably aggravate a lot of people because everybody's like, whoa, you know, let's look at the statistics for, you know, New York City. Okay, right, let's look at the statistics for New York City, which is the only city where coronavirus is higher than, you know, the flu, the regular flu. But nobody wants to tell you that in the country of Sweden, the COVID-19 rate is about the same as the flu rate for the year 2017. There's a marginal difference there, okay? If you go to Google and you search up the statistics, because I believe Sweden has about 10 million people, so if you look it up and you work out the ratio, it's marginally different, okay, than with the coronavirus. For Sweden, who had no lockdown whatsoever. Okay, why am I getting to all of this? A lot of people that we know, and even a lot of preachers, you know, pulled the wisdom card when this whole thing happened, and you know, when everybody's like, let's go on lockdown, it'll be the safest for everybody, and other than destroying economies and destroying a lot of other things, and you know, causing a lot of other like even suicide rates and a lot of other problems to go sky high due to the lockdown, ignoring all those things, but yet, you know, let's just stay safe. Okay, so what does that reveal? Number one, the number one thing that it reveals is the fear and the gullibility that we as believers have in our hearts. Okay, and it just reveals who we listen to and who we've been trained to listen to. Are we listening to government? Are we listening to the world around us? Or are we listening to what Christ tells us? Right. And so the big thing is that the lockdown of the church is what I actually want to speak about. Right. The lockdown, not just the lockdown of the world, but the lockdown of the church. Why is that important? All right. I spoke about George Floyd, you know, in a previous video that's recently been released, and And of course we condemn it, and I'm not going to go into it. If you want to see what I said, go and watch the video. The point is this. The whole world condemned the church of meeting, okay, because we can do it over social media, you can pray at your home, blah, whatever everybody's viewpoint is. And so we had to follow the world's view about this, all right? But going to a shop and having hundreds of people in a shop. In America, you have Walmart. Here, we would have Checkers. We would have all kinds of other shops, Macro, whatever you want to call it. And you would go there and there would be hundreds of people. That's fine, okay? And so we followed the world's view on this, okay? The problem with this whole thing is the following. Now we're having George Floyd. The whole world is good. Let's get thousands of people in the streets, all right? Let's get thousands of people in the streets. And that's good, and we're going to promote it all. We're going to do these riots, and we're going to do looting all over the world, and that's good, all right? But having people in the church, that's not good, and that's not safe, okay? So what does that do? That is just the revealing of the heart and the intent to the church, all right? And so, if you want to talk about hierarchy, and if you want to talk about, anarchy, and if you want to talk about, a lot of people say, the Nazis this, and they, the right-wing people in the US, and they're the Nazis, and this, that, and the other. And listen, I'm not a US citizen. My wife is a US citizen. So I can't really say much about that. But the point is this, it's easy to pull that card, but if you become the dictator that tells people what they can and cannot do, and agree with the dictators that do tell people what they can and cannot do, what are you then? Okay? Because that is not even communism. Okay? That's narcissism at its best, because it is a self-centered, all right, thing where we won't see other people's view and other people's needs and other people's wants because of our culture, because of our history, and because of the way we want to see things happen. All right? And so, why am I bringing this up? I'm just going to, in the context of the kingdom of God, I just want to throw this in. A couple of years ago, it was the first time that my wife went with me to this outreach that I've been doing annually on the Lesotho border. And so we had the meeting on the South African side, but on the border, it was very rural, or it is still very rural there. And we had this, there was a group of people there, and there was these two young girls that was involved in this tent meeting. I believe they were about 15 and 17 years old at the time. And they were in the music side of things, so in other words, the worship, the band, whatever you want to call it. And so they had a great experience with the Holy Spirit. We went through, that was the Saturday. The Sunday we went through to have a meeting on the other side of the border, on the Lesotho side. Obviously, you've got to present your passport. It's a whole rigmarole to get through the border, all of that stuff. We went there, and, on the border side, if you don't have a passport to go through, you have to walk over the mountain, and I'm talking about like rough mountain terrain, extremely cold. There's soldiers there. It's not a Western environment. So if you're a woman and you get caught by these soldiers, you will get raped. Okay, or the chance that you'll get raped is very high. The bottom line is, these girls had an experience. They knew we were going to Lesotho. We didn't know about anything. When we got there, we about 30 minutes into the meeting. And here comes these two girls walking into the meeting. And I realized, and it took us a few minutes to realize what happened, but I realized that they were so hungry to hear the gospel. They were so hungry to have that experience with God again, that they walked barefoot, okay, because they had these cheap sandals, plastic, China-made things. Sorry for saying that, but it's just what it was, like cheap plastic sandals. I don't know what you want to call it. They walked with them. They were torn to pieces, so they walked basically barefoot over the mountain, past these soldiers, risking their lives to get raped, to get into a meeting, to have an experience with God. All right? And I remember seeing that we wept. My wife actually wept for days, because we realized that there are so many people that is so desperate to have an experience with God, and we cheapen it to, let's use wisdom. We cheapen it to, Romans 13, be subject to the governments of the day. I mean, what a bunch of baloney, what a bunch of baloney, all right? To cover up people's fear, to cover up people's, self-centered motives. In China, I've got friends that minister there and that involvement there and stuff like that. There are people, when there's a Bible that go in there, they literally rip it apart and each person takes one page. All right? They meditate, they memorize it, and then they quote it to one another. So they know that whole thing off of heart, whole page off of heart, because that's the only way as a group how they can have the Bible. Because there is no Bibles there. And we cheapen it down to wisdom and let's just be subject to the authorities of the day. What a bunch of baloney, all right? So, I'm probably going to aggravate not only, social media with this, but probably a lot of pastors and hopefully not some of my friends. But if I do, check your heart. And I just wanted to say that, when it comes to the preaching of the gospel, if you're not bold, why are you doing it? If you stuck away, I pray that God will give you boldness to preach the gospel of Christ with boldness and not be ashamed of it and stop hiding from it. I just want to end this video with two things. Of course, in where we are right now in South Africa, myself and my wife Leslie, we have a small problem. Even though our constitution says it's unconstitutional to go into lockdown, they actually just recently proved it so in court. And it doesn't really matter because, the constitution doesn't really mean anything right here because because of the way the government is run. In the US, the same thing happened, okay? But when Dr. Howard-Browne was locked up because he refused to stay in, he refused to shut his church down during COVID-19. Everybody went on a big hoo-ha. The bottom line was it was unconstitutional, okay? We're a couple of weeks down the road, and what happens? Well, they've got still in the state of Florida, COVID-19 has a much lower death rate than that of the regular flu, according to the CDC, all right? Nobody says anything. They all blasted Rodney Howard-Browne and now everybody's quiet. No, let's go to another subject now, Anyway, the point is this, is that it is unconstitutional. So how hierarchical will we allow this to get before we say something because we are too scared and too hidden, all right? And too fearful to say anything, all right? And so I'm willing to say something on the subject. This is not right and this is not godly. And if you're a preacher, I pray that you'll put on your big boy pants and preach the gospel with boldness and stop hiding away because people want to talk fear into your heart, all right? And so I just wanted to encourage people with this. Now, for example, with the George Floyd thing, all right? George Floyd is a black man who died. I put a video up about it, and how wrong it was, and please go and watch it if you haven't watched it. But here's the irony of the whole thing. During all these riots and looting that's been going on across the United States, there's up to date 6 officers, law officers that died just recently because of this whole thing, all right? 3 of them are black, 3 of them are white. Nobody says a single word, okay? And that's not racism at all, because that was the rioters that did it. Well, that just reveals the heart because we are not willing to go and check out the truth. So if this aggravates you, check your heart. If this doesn't aggravate you, I pray that you'll receive boldness. Bless you.